What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW videos. Long time no see, but we have a new Pokemon being introduced into Pokemon Go referred to as Zarude. So Zarude is a Generation 8 mythical Pokemon that's being introduced into Pokemon Go in collaboration with the movie Secrets of the Jungle coming out on Netflix October 8th. But what's going to end up happening is this Pokemon's actually going to be made available October 1st. We'll of course get some special research, but you may be kind of curious about this Pokemon, especially if you haven't followed the main series. You want to learn a little bit more about it, and we're going to of course do a pre-dive on this Pokemon, which means we go ahead and take a look at this Pokemon and learn anything and everything that we know currently, and we also speculate on things like the moveset, which could end up changing before it gets officially released. So then in that case, once everything gets confirmed, we end up performing a deep dive, which is very similar to the pre-dive. It's just post-confirmation. But anyways, I hope you do enjoy today's episode. If you do, make sure to hit that like button, turn it shiny, and of course subscribe if you want to see more pre-dives and deep dives like this in the future. But anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. So let's go ahead and start this video off by taking a look at the stats for Zarude, and you can see why a lot of people are going to be excited about this Pokemon. So first things first, we've got the typing, and this Pokemon is a dark as well as a grass type. So yes, it is a dual type. We could potentially use it from two different typings, of course, dependent upon the moveset. But if we go ahead and take a look at its overall stats, we can see that its stamina stat is actually ranked the highest, with its stamina stat being 233, that's ranked at 53rd in Pokemon Go, followed by its defense stat being ranked at 89th, and then finally followed by its attack stat ranked at 116th. So yes, its attack stat is its worst stat out of the three, but even though the attack stat is its worst stat, it still ends up almost ranking into the top 100 in Pokemon Go, which is still impressive. So this Pokemon is super well rounded, and that can be reflected in the overall stat ranking of 18th in Pokemon Go, with all of the Pokemon in Pokemon Go and Generation 6 all the way through Generation 1. So very impressive for this Pokemon. And if we go ahead and dive into the relative rankings and take a look at Zarude as a dark type versus 61 dark type Pokemon, Zarude ends up being the 4th best option among those dark types as far as the overall stats are concerned. And then the rankings for the individual stats end up remaining the same, with the stamina being the best, followed by the defense, and then finally we've got the attack leading or following up the pack. And then finally, if we go ahead and take a look at the grass, out of 93 grass type Pokemon, we can see that Zarude ends up having the best overall stats for a grass type in Pokemon Go, and the stats actually do change up a little bit, with the stamina once again leading in at 3rd, and then we've got the attack stat actually coming in as the 2nd best rank among the 3 stats, ranked at 4th among those grass types. And then finally we have the defense stat, and that makes a lot of sense. We've seen a lot of grass type Pokemon being more defense heavy and more stamina heavy, so the attack stat's actually pretty good for Zarude overall, but even better when you just compare it against those grass type Pokemon. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and dive into some raids, and we're going to take a look at Zarude as a dark type attacker, and then of course as a grass type attacker. And then for the movesets, we can go ahead and briefly take a look, but we're going to kind of answer which ones end up being the best. We don't really have too much of a choice. It is a relatively simple moveset as far as what's pre-programmed into the game. So for example, we'll go with Bite, and Dark Pulse. For the dark typing, Dark Pulse is not the most ideal move, so just keep that in mind. And then we're also going to take a look at Vine Whip as well as Power Whip, and then finally Energy Ball. And I will be doing a direct comparison for Power Whip versus Energy Ball. That way you can see which move ends up being the best. And I'm really excited about going up against some Pokemon as a grass type attacker, just because the stats end up working out very well versus those grass type Pokemon. So let's go ahead and actually jump into that. Like I mentioned before, we're gonna start out with the dark typing. So we're gonna go up against a Cresselia, and this is gonna be a little bit of a precursor. As you can see, we're taking a look towards the bottom of the list. We see something great in there like Yveltal, but as far as these Pokemon are concerned, we're at the 22 to 30 rank. And if we go ahead and include Zarude in on the time to win, we can see it has a time to win of 969, which means it would actually end up slotting in right behind Honchkrow. So how is this possible? Well, it's something that we don't really talk that much about, but in this particular case, Bite is actually not that great of a move. There are great Pokemon that have the move Bite, but they would be even better if they had something else. For example, something like a Snarl. And then on the charge move side, you have that move Dark Pulse, which is not the most ideal move you want to have. Something like a Foul Play would really jump up a Pokemon like Zarude. So a little bit unfortunate. The moveset kind of holds back Zarude, despite the fact that it does have some great stats. And yes, the attack stat is a little bit on the lower end, if you will, but the moveset ultimately amplifies that problem. So let's go ahead and dive into the opposite side of this, and we're going to take a look at grass type attackers. Now, as you can see, we've got some good news here, because if you go ahead and take a look at the Pokemon, we are taking a look at the top 9 options from that raid side, which means Zarude is going to be slotted somewhere in here. So let's go ahead and reveal it here. Going up against a Mega Swampert, which is double weak to the grass typing. We can go ahead and first talk about the comparison and see that Power Whip ends up being the better option to use versus Energy Ball, and the time to win is drastically different. You do not want to go with Energy Ball. It is completely terrible. Power Whip, however, puts you into the competition, keeps you in the game, and as we can see here, we've got a time to win of 4.58, which would put us into a slot kind of between, or kind of like right after some of those top Shadow type Pokemon, and puts us into the new 5th position. But then of course we can also keep in mind the fact that we've got Zarude with a very high stamina stat. So if we take a look at that, we've got 13 feints, and as you can see here, you've got a Mega Venusaur with 13 feints, and then you've got a couple other Pokemon that have way more feints. So Zarude ends up being one of those Pokemon from the grass typing where it is able to stay in the fight, and it's also able to get out a lot of damage. So it probably ends up being like one of the most well-rounded options, especially if you're focused on keeping a Pokemon in the fight. We've talked about anchors on this channel. I think it kind of acts like an anchor, but it's an anchor that can output some damage. So I do think that Zarude could have a spot on your grass team. At least in my opinion, the performance is up there, and maybe you don't have those shadows, so it ends up being kind of like the next best option. It will be expensive to power up, but I feel like we can talk about that once we get into the PvP side of things. So PvPoke already ran a couple of simulations for this. Keep in mind, once the deep dive ends up coming out, we get everything finalized, including the moveset. I'll do another video where we can actually see the rankings in the different leagues, but for now, the general consensus is that Zarude has a really good outlook in the Master League, which is pretty interesting and a conversation that needs to be said, and it's particularly going to be one of the first viable grass type Pokemon that could end up competing there. But the conversation that needs to be had is, because this Pokemon is a mythical Pokemon, what's going to end up happening with the special research is we're going to end up being able to get access to some candy for Zarude, but it's not going to be enough to get you up into that Master League. So it adds another layer of complexity where, yes, it could be worth it to power up because it is a top 5 performer, for example, but getting access to the candy is going to be so much more limited. But if you are interested in Zarude, what I would recommend now is to go ahead and start adding up your rare candies and getting enough to where you could evolve it up to level 40, for example, if you wanted to do that. XLs, I feel like, are completely out of the question. Using it in something like, level 50 Master League, I would never do that because of the expense it would take, which really makes you think that this system needs to be kind of redone. But I, of course, would love to know what you think about that in the comment section below. Also, what do you think of Zarude? Do you plan to actually use it? Do you think it's a cool Pokemon? I love the design. I love green, love black combination there. So I'm probably going to try to power it up and try to use it some, but I would absolutely love to know what you think about Zarude in the comment section below, and of course how you plan to use it. But anyways, I want to give a huge shout out to the supporters over at Patreon. Thank you so much. If you're interested in joining the exclusive Discord server to get access to raids, and of course chat about Pokemon Go, make sure to check out the Patreon link in the description below, and I will see you next time.